Hello to the pessimistic, optimistic, and everyone in between. My name is Connor Philippine. Welcome back to the Minnesotan Sports Podcast, and we are officially here. I cannot wait. Week 1 is right around the corner. It actually starts tonight from when you're watching this video. Another reminder for you, I am going to be live right before kickoff. It's going to be a 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time live stream right here on YouTube. So make sure you tune into that. It'll be really fun just to kind of go over all the things we're all excited for to start out the season. I know that I have not been able to make nearly as many videos this year as I have in previous years about the preseason stuff, my predictions. Usually I do quarterback rankings, running back, wide receiver rankings, and I haven't been able to do that because my August has just been so action-packed. And so hopefully I can do a lot of that in this live stream, and you can answer a lot of questions for me. You can ask a lot of questions that I can answer for you, and it should just be a nice chill stream where we can all just talk and get excited for the season to start. So make sure you tune into that again, 6 to 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube. But anyway, let's get into these predictions. These are always the funnest videos to make. This year I'm going to be a lot more consistent with actually marking down who I pick and then actually being accountable for my picks. I'm going to actually go through my entire record from the start of the season to the end of the season, and we're going to break down just how many I've gotten right and wrong. But we'll start things out with the game happening tonight, if you're watching this when this is uploaded. Ravens at Chiefs, and this is going to be a really fun matchup, a rematch of the AFC Championship. It's going to be interesting to see how Patrick Mahomes performs right away to start off the season, because last year with kind of the concerns with, who is he going to throw to, eventually players stepped up, but this is going to be the very first week. We'll see if Xavier Worthy gets in the mix right away because Hollywood Brown is not in the lineup. And so the Chiefs might have a tough time offensively to start out the season, much like they did last year as well. I don't think it'll necessarily be an omen for them to have a bad season entirely, but they will struggle in this first week. And the Ravens are a well-oiled machine. They have a lot of players back that they had last year. Lamar Jackson, again, when he's healthy, is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I'm going to pick the Ravens on Thursday Night Football. The Chiefs are going to drop a opening game to the season for the second year in a row. Next up, it is probably the worst matchup you could possibly have for a Vikings fan, because no matter what happens, one team that you hate loses. It's the Packers at the Eagles. This is going to be a Peacock exclusive game in Sao Paulo in Brazil, and it's going to be another good game where I think the Packers are going to be immediately exposed. I talked about just yesterday in my podcast episode where I broke down the divisions and talked about who I thought would end up being in 1 through 7 in the standings by the end of the year. I talked about how I think the Packers are overhyped, how I think that Jordan Love is not nearly as good of a quarterback as everyone seems to make him out to be. He had one good half of the season, and all of a sudden people are acting like he's this top 10 quarterback, and I just don't understand it. And I think the Eagles, while they might get off to kind of a slow start in the sense that they lost their, Hall of Fame center in Jason Kelce, I think any other aspect of them has even gotten better. They added Saquon Barkley. This isn't really a traditional home game for them, but I do still think the Eagles are going to get this one done, and the spread is minus 2.5. I think they're going to cover that easily, and this is going to be a routing that the Packers are going to get totally exposed in. Now we move on to the noon games. This is the year I actually bit the bullet, and I felt like, oh, well, you got to be home watching the Vikings game to start off the year. You can't just go out and watch all the games at like Buffalo Wild Wings. Now the Vikings are not supposed to be good this year. I am actually going to do it. I'm going to go out and I'm going to watch all the week 1 games from Buffalo Wild Wings because, I don't know how I didn't think of that sooner. Like, week 1 is the week you want to go to Buffalo Wild Wings and watch all these teams that you are excited to see the rookies play and all these things. So I finally am going to do it this year, and I'm excited to do it. But we got the noon games here. We're starting it off with the Steelers at the Falcons, and I am going to go with the Falcons here. I think that the Steelers have their quarterback issues, and yes, the defense is going to be good again for the Steelers, which might pose some issues as Kirk Cousins is in his very first, or taking his very first snaps in a Falcons uniform that week. But I do think that the Falcons are going to have a lot more in the tank to start out the season. The Steelers don't even know for sure who their starting quarterback is going to be week one. I think that there's a lot of turmoil that's going to happen there. And so I think the Falcons are going into this game more ready to win. And again, Kirk Cousins is going to let people know that he still is a great quarterback in this league. So I'm going to say the Falcons win that matchup pretty handily, honestly. Next up, we have the Cardinals at the Bills. This could be an early season trap game for the Bills. You know, Josh Allen going into this game, he's going to be trying to feel things out with these wide receivers. He doesn't have nearly the wide receiver room he had last year. He lost one of the best wide receivers in the league in Stephon Diggs. It's going to be a little bit shaky for him, but the Cardinals are also going to be feeling their way through a brand new wide receiver, through Kyler Murray coming back finally from all the injuries he's been having. We still don't know what version of Kyler Murray we're going to see in the coming years, and so there's just so many unanswered questions with the Cardinals. They had such a bad year last year. You have to go with the Bills since they won the division, and I still think they're going to be a good team this year. Spread of minus 6.5, I think they do end up covering that. Next up, we've got the Titans at the Bears. And as much as I have been low on the Bears going into this season, I do think they are a better team than the Titans. Caleb Williams might struggle in the first, game of his career, but the Titans are a big dumpster fire right now. They are heavy on the rebuilding process. I can't think of a much better matchup to start out a career for Caleb Williams, and I do think he's going to have a good enough game where the Bears are going to be able to get the job done and beat the Titans. They'll improve to 1-0 on the season, and people will be totally overhyping them after that point, and then that's when things are going to go south once again. But too hard to say that they're going to somehow find a way to lose against the Titans, who are just one of the worst teams in the league. So the Bears will take that one home. Patriots at Bengals. I do think that this is going to be a pretty easy win for the Bengals. Joe Burrow is hungry. He is going to come into this season fighting right away, and I think he's going to have a really good first few weeks of the season. Now we've got Jamar Chase, who's in a contract dispute. Yes, they don't have Joe Mixon anymore, but I think this offense is still going to be absolutely tremendous, and they shouldn't have very many problems against the Patriots team that had a really rough year last year. Drake May is going to have a lot of growing pains, in my opinion, especially because the Patriots don't have a lot of options for him right now. So this is going to be a rough season all the way around for the Patriots, and I hope it doesn't mess up the development of Drake May, but we're going to have to see if it does. Bengals improve to 1-0. The next matchup, the noon matchup, I'm really excited to see this one take place. You've got the Texans playing an away game to start out the season against the division rival Colts. Not only is it an AFC South rivalry right out of the gate, it's also a matchup where we're seeing CJ Stroud and the Texans, who are one of my most hyped teams going into the season. You get to see Stephon Diggs in a new uniform. This is a team that should be a top 2 seed, in my opinion, in the AFC this year. But they have an early test this season going up against the Colts where Anthony Richardson, we're waiting to see what he's going to do. And it should be really fun to see him play such a good team to start out the year. But because Anthony Richardson is coming back from an injury, and because I think the Texans will be such a good team, I will say that the Houston Texans win this one and improve to 1-0 in what should be a pretty easy win against a Colts team that will be kind of feeling things out to start out the year. Next up, we have the Jags at the Dolphins. So I should preface this. Every single week, I do what I call the upset of the week. I pick one game, and I can pick more than one upset if I want, but I pick one that is going to be like a pretty big upset, in my opinion, and I see if I end up being right. The spread has to be at least -3 or worse for a team. Honestly, looking through the rest of the schedule, I don't think that the rest of the matchups are going to warrant any other kind of an upset. Really, the spreads are very close to each other at the beginning of the season, so I will go with the upset of the week being the Jaguars over the Dolphins. I do think that there's a lot more left in the tank for Trevor Lawrence. I do have the Dolphins being a better team than the Jags, obviously, this year, but upset city waiting to happen. I've been talking about how I'm concerned about the Dolphins this year. They ended up failing at the end of the season and then losing in the first round of the playoffs because they were just so predictable of an offense. We'll have to see if they're able to fix that going into the season. But if there's any team that I think can be predictable enough to lose a game they should win to start out the season, I think it's going to be the Dolphins. Pick the Jags for the upset of the week, and we'll see what happens. Next up, we've got the Panthers at the Saints. Now, this is also a upset of the week candidate, but the Panthers are just too bad of a team for me to really pick. There's always a couple teams going into the season that I say I'm going to pick them to win until they lose, and then there are other teams that I say I'm going to pick them to lose until I see them win. I have to say the Panthers are going to lose until I see a win out of them, because it's going to be another season that's going to be rough for Panthers fans this year. They're still finding their way. We'll see if Bryce Young has a good season, because it's only a matter of time. I mean, he's already played 2 full seasons, now going into his third. He hasn't had much help, but he's going to have to play better this year. Otherwise, the Panthers are going to be a little bit, reaching for the panic button and might make some decisions to potentially move on from him. But this week, I don't see him doing anything spectacular. I think the Saints are going to be a pretty good team this year, and I think that in the Superdome to start out the season, they will win that opening matchup. As always, I'm going to be doing a separate video later in the week on either Friday or Saturday breaking down the Vikings game of the week, and so I'm going to be skipping my prediction for the Vikings at the Giants. You can see my full predictions and full preview and breakdown of that matchup in that upcoming video. So now we'll move on to the 305 and 325 slates. Only 4 games in that window in this first week. We have the Raiders at the Chargers. I think this will be one of the closer matchups, honestly, of the week, because, the Raiders going into this, they don't have much for a quarterback, but they still do have Devontae Adams. They got better on defense as well. The Chargers going into this, Justin Herbert is an elite talent still, but he's going to have a really hard time trying to figure out who his options are in this very first week. Not to mention his defense got even worse than it did last year. And yes, Jim Harbaugh might be able to fix that, but we'll have to see. I don't know how well either of these two teams, honestly, will start out the season. Both of these teams I could definitely see having a really rough start. I am going to go with the Chargers, though, even though, both of these, it's the kind of the battle of the two teams that don't really have home games, because they always have the away fans raiding their stadiums. So we'll have to see who ends up showing up to this game. It might be empty. But I will say the Chargers win this matchup. I think that Justin Herbert is too good of a quarterback to be out-battled by Gardner Minshew. And so I say the Chargers improve to 1-0 to start out the season. Next up, we have the Broncos at the Seahawks. The Seahawks have one of the biggest spreads going into this game of -6. Not only do I think that the Bo Nix experiment won't work out in Denver, these first few weeks are going to be really bad, I think, for the Broncos, because Bo Nix is just starting things out. He, is starting out as probably the rookie that has the second worst situation besides Trevor May, or Drake May, I mean. And so I think that he's going to have a really rough time starting out your career, in Seattle in front of probably the loudest fans in the entire NFL is not a good combination. I say the Seahawks win and improve to 1-0. Moving on now to the Cowboys at the Browns. The Browns are actually favored to win this matchup. I think it's going to be a really close one. The only thing is we have Deshaun Watson coming back from another injury that ended his season last year. We don't know if this guy can even stay healthy, and even when he has played in the last couple of years, he hasn't been good. And so, yes, the Browns have one of the best defenses in the league, but I think the Cowboys are more established. I think that, you've got Dak Prescott, who is going to be really fighting for, a new contract by the end of the season. CeeDee Lamb just got paid. He's happy. I think the Cowboys will come into Huntington Bank Field, I guess is what it's called now, and defeat the Browns to start out the regular season. Now going into the final 325 matchup, the Commanders at the Buccaneers. Buccaneers favored to win this one by 3.5. I have been kind of low on the Bucs and higher than most people on the Commanders, so I think this will be a really close game. If there's any quarterback that I think is going to have like a really standout week, like I think Caleb Williams will do okay, but if there's any rookie QB that's going to have like a huge standout week that everyone's going to be turning their eyes to, it's going to be Jaden Daniels. I've been high on him ever since the draft process started. I think he's going to do great things for the Commanders. The Buccaneers, I'm pretty low on. I think Baker Mayfield's going to kind of fall off this season. So by that property, I think I'm going to say the Commanders pull off the quote-unquote upset and defeat the Buccaneers to start out the season. People are going to be really hyped over the Commanders right away this season. Finally, we have the two primetime games to finish out the schedule. We have the Rams at the Lions on NBC Sunday Night Football. I think this is going to be a really good game. Part of me honestly thinks that the Lions might start out the season and stumble just a little bit. I was high on them going into the season. I have them winning the NFC North handily in the division predictions. I still think they're going to end up winning 12, maybe even 13 games this season. But for some reason, I just see them under the lights coming off of what was a really rough championship game loss. I think the Rams might come in and take this one. I think the Rams are going to come in angry. The Lions might come in with too many expectations to win after the season they had. I'm going to say the Rams pull off the upset and defeat the Lions in the first week of the season. And then finally, we have the Jets at the 49ers. Aaron Rodgers making yet another Monday Night Football start. Well, let's just hope for his sake that it goes better than the last one. But he's not going to be done any favors because the 49ers defense is waiting for him to start out the season. It's going to be a really tough environment as well. He's coming into Santa Clara where he thought he was going to end up playing in his career before he was drafted by the Packers after the 49ers, overlooked him and picked Alex Smith instead. So a lot of great storylines coming into this matchup. I do think the 49ers win this one though. Again, the 49ers are that team for me where I'm like, I need to see them lose before I can pick against them at any point this season. They've just got so much going for them. Even if their defense wasn't as good as it was, I would still pick them to win this one over the Jets. It'll probably be a lower scoring matchup to start out this Monday Night Football slate, but I do think the 49ers will get the job done. Aaron Rodgers still has to feel things out, coming back from a huge season-ending injury. We'll have to see there, but the 49ers will win this one and improve to 1-0. So there you have it, the first week of predictions. I still can't believe the season's actually almost here. Let me know in the comments what you think about my predictions, what you agree with, what you disagree with. Always love talking about those things in the comment section. And again, make sure you tune in to my live stream. Again, it's 6 p.m. Central Time to 7 p.m. Central Time tonight, Thursday, September 5th, right before kickoff between the Chiefs and the Ravens. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the flip side.